The car doors slammed in sequence. Driver's side first, then passenger. Through my living room window, I watched Wesley gesture as he spoke, his hands moving in that animated way he'd had since childhood. The woman beside him paused on the driveway, her eyes traveling up the house facade, calculating something I couldn't name yet. I wiped my palms on my jeans and opened the door before they knocked. "Dad, this is Trudy." "Trudy, my father, Forrest." She extended her hand with a smile that reached her lips, but stopped short of her eyes. "Mr. Dixon, Wesley talks about you constantly. This house is beautiful. How long have you lived here?" 23 years. Built most of the additions myself." "Really? You must have quite the skill set." She pivoted seamlessly. "Wesley mentioned you owned several businesses." We moved inside. Trudy's fingers trailed along the back of my leather sofa, then lifted a framed photograph of Wesley's college graduation. She studied the silver frame itself, turning it to catch the light. "Beautiful craftsmanship," she murmured, setting it down with care that seemed more about assessing value than showing respect. At dinner, Wesley glowed. He served the pot roast with pride. "So, Forrest, 5 auto shops across Phoenix. That's impressive. Do you handle all locations yourself?" Trudy cut her meat into precise, small pieces. "I have managers. I mostly oversee operations now." Wesley jumped in. "Dad built it from nothing. Started with one garage in 1989. "That's remarkable. And you're planning to retire soon?" The question hung there, specific and pointed. I set down my fork carefully. "Eventually, haven't set a timeline." She nodded, then pivoted. "What's the square footage here? The layout is so well designed." "Around 2,800. And the property value in this area must be—" She caught herself, laughing lightly. "I'm sorry. I work in marketing. I analyze everything. Occupational hazard. I decided to test something. Actually, I've been considering selling an investment property I own in Scottsdale, thinking it might be time to liquidate some assets." Trudy's fork paused halfway to her mouth, her eyes sharpened with unmistakable interest. "Really? What kind of property?" "Duplex. Purchased it in 2010. Market's good right now." "How much are you asking?" The question came too quickly, too eagerly. I smiled and changed the subject. I'd seen that flash of hunger. Wesley's phone buzzed during dessert. "Work emergency. I need to take this." He stepped onto the back patio. Trudy rose smoothly. "Let me help you clean up." In the kitchen, away from the windows, her demeanor shifted like someone flipping a switch. The warm smile vanished. Her voice dropped to a businesslike tone. "Wesley is a wonderful man, but he needs support to get started. I'm sure you understand that as his father." I kept my face neutral. "Get started with what exactly?" "Life. A real future. You know how expensive everything is now." "Wesley has a good job. He's doing fine." "Fine isn't the same as secure, is it?" She tilted her head, studying my reaction. I dried my hand slowly. "What exactly are you asking me for?" She laughed, light and dismissive. "I'm not asking for anything, Forrest. Just making conversation. Families should understand each other, don't you think?" Wesley returned before I could respond, and the warmth flooded back into her expression. They left an hour later. Wesley hugged me at the door. "Thanks for tonight, Dad. She's amazing, right?" "She's certainly interesting." I walked back inside, exhausted. When I went to switch off the bathroom light, I saw the paper on the counter, a credit card statement folded once. It must have fallen from her purse. I picked it up. The balance jumped out at me immediately. $18,450.73. In the living room, I sank onto the sofa, the statement in my hands. My phone buzzed with a text from Wesley. "Thanks again, Dad. I think she's the one." I stared at those words, then at the number on the paper, $18,000 in debt, asking pointed questions about my assets, making veiled demands. I walked through the house, seeing what she'd seen. Square footage, property values, assets waiting to be liquidated. I photographed the statement with my phone. I sat in the darkness and understood that my son needed protection. 3 days passed. I rehearsed the conversation a dozen ways. None ended with Wesley believing me instead of her. I called him Tuesday morning. Can you meet me at the Camelback shop? Need to talk about something. The pause on his end told me he already knew. What about? Rather do it in person around 2. Fine. The word landed flat, defensive. I arrived early. Wesley's truck pulled in at 10:02. He walked into my office without his usual smile, arms already crossed. Thanks for coming by the shop. I wanted to talk about Trudy. What about her? The challenge was immediate. You've known her how long? 4 months? 5. What's your point? That's not very long to be discussing marriage. His jaw tightened. You proposed to Mom after 3 months. The comparison stung. I shifted tactics. I noticed she asked a lot of questions about money, about the business. She's interested in my life. That includes my family. It felt like an assessment, not interest. Wesley's voice rose. An assessment? She was being polite. Wesley, I'm just asking you to slow down. No, you're asking me to doubt her. I could see I was losing him, pushing him further into her corner, with every word. I reached for the drawer where I'd placed the credit card statement, then stopped. His face was already closed off, his posture rigid with defensiveness. Showing him the evidence now would only make him dig in harder. You've been alone since the divorce. His voice dropped lower, colder. Maybe you forgot what it's like when someone actually wants to build a future with you. The words landed like a physical blow. I kept my voice quiet, controlled. That's not fair. Neither is this conversation. Trudy makes me happy. Why can't that be enough? Because happiness based on deception doesn't last. You just can't accept that I'm happy without your approval. He moved toward the door, his movements sharp with anger. Wesley, wait. I'm done listening. He was gone before I could form another sentence. I watched him drive away too fast. I sat alone in my office. I'd handled it wrong. The next day, my phone rang. Unknown number. Forrest, it's Trudy. I pulled into an empty parking lot. What do you want? Her tone was sweet, conciliatory. Wesley mentioned you two had a misunderstanding. I feel terrible about it. This is between me and my son. Of course, but family is important to me. She paused. Wesley and I have been looking at houses, and I thought if you help with the down payment, maybe $80 or $100,000, it would show Wesley you support our future together. The audacity hit me like cold water. I took a long breath. You thought that, did you? It would mean so much to both of us. Her voice carried certainty. I'll think about it. I ended the call. The call clarified something crucial. This wasn't opportunism. This was strategy. She turned the conflict between Wesley and me into leverage for an explicit 6-figure demand. I needed to know who I was really dealing with. I called Rita Chun, a private investigator I'd heard about. 2 days later, I sat across from her in a coffee shop. I slid the folder containing the credit card statement, photos, and notes across the table. I need someone investigated thoroughly. My son's fiancée. I think she's after money. You think or you know. I know enough to be concerned. Rita opened the folder. This amount of debt targeting someone with family wealth. It fits a pattern. She looked up. Mr. Dixon, I need you to understand something. If your instincts are right, what I find might be worse than you think. Are you prepared for that? I pulled out my checkbook and wrote a check for the $3,500 retainer for 2 weeks of investigation. Then I need to know everything. 2 weeks crawled by. Rita called and asked to meet immediately. When she spread the contents of her messenger bag across my desk, photographs, bank statements, credit reports, I understood why. Mr. Dixon, what I found is worse than typical gold digging. Show me everything. Rita arranged the documents. For credit cards, all maxed. $47,000 in debt. She's drowning, and your son is the life raft she's swimming toward. I studied her spending history. Her rent was $2,400 monthly, yet she made only $4,000 a month after expenses. How does she survive? Rita slid photographs across the desk. There's someone else in the picture. The photos showed Trudy meeting with a man at various locations. Who is he? Marcus Trent, 41, commercial real estate broker. They've met 3 times in 2 weeks. I examined their body language. Is it romantic? No, it's worse. It's strategic. They're planning something. My phone rang before I could respond. Wesley's name lit up the screen. I glanced at Rita, then answered. Dad, I have news. His voice carried an excitement I hadn't heard in months. I forced warmth into my tone. Wesley's excitement and the possibility of a new development in his relationship, while I sit here with evidence of a conspiracy, is a dangerous collision. Do you want to hear Wesley's news now? Or should I finish examining Rita's evidence of the conspiracy first? I'm listening. We're engaged officially. Wedding in August. The photographs of Gertrude with Marcus Trent stared up at me from the desk. I stood and walked to the window, watching the normal work of the shop. That's wonderful, son. Congratulations. I thought you'd be upset. Relief flooded his words. You're my son. Your happiness matters to me. We talked for another minute, wedding venues, guest lists. I congratulated him again, told him I loved him, and ended the call. Rita had reorganized the evidence. That changes the timeline, she said quietly. August for months. Keep watching. I want to know who Marcus Trent is to her. Over the following week, Gertrude's pressure campaign intensified, circled by Wesley. He mentioned carefully how other parents help their children, how meaningful financial support would be. He never demanded, just suggested. Then came the text. Dad, can we talk? No arguments, just talk. I replied immediately. Of course. Name the time and place. Trudy wants to be there. Is that okay? I typed back. If that's what you want. She has ideas about the future. Our future. I think you should hear them. I stared at that message before replying. I'm listening. The next morning, I drove to Dominic's Steakhouse, the restaurant Wesley suggested. I scouted the location, then sat in my truck and pulled the small recording device from my glove box. Arizona was a one-party consent state. I could legally record any conversation I participated in. The performance of a lifetime started at noon tomorrow. I had 12 hours to prepare for the biggest role I'd ever play, the father considering surrender. I arrived 30 minutes early and requested the corner booth. The recording device sat in my inner jacket pocket, activated. Wesley and Gertrude walked in at noon. I watched her confident stride and the leather portfolio she carried. I stood to greet them. Forrest, thank you so much for meeting with us. Her smile reached her eyes today. She'd practiced, too. Family is important. I'm glad we're talking. This means a lot, Dad. Really, Wesley's relief was visible. You're my son. I want you to have a good start. Gertrude saw the opening. That's exactly what we want to discuss. A strong foundation. She opened her portfolio and slid papers across the table. Property listings in the $450,000 range, highlighted and annotated. We need about $100,000 for down payment and closing costs. I kept my expression neutral. That's substantial. What's Wesley putting in? Wesley shifted. I have about $15,000 saved. Which is wonderful, Gertrude interjected smoothly. But you understand how expensive everything has become. I picked up a listing. What's your timeline? We want to start our marriage in our own home. I've always dreamed of financial stability, the kind I never had growing up. My hand paused mid-reach for my water glass. I singular personal. The mask slipped for a moment. I mean, we want to build something lasting for our children someday, Wesley added earnestly. I let the moment settle, then leaned back. This is a big decision. I need to think about the numbers, consult my financial advisor. Of course, we're not asking for an immediate answer. Her relief was visible. She'd interpret my stall as progress. How soon do you need to know? We're looking at August for the wedding. Ideally, we'd move into a house shortly after. That gives us time. Let me review everything properly. I tapped the papers into alignment. Maybe we can look at some specific properties together in a few weeks. The hope that lit Wesley's face made my chest tighten. He was so desperate for this to work. Gertrude produced more materials, furniture estimates, vehicle options. The level of preparation was impressive and disturbing. We finished lunch with promises to talk soon. Wesley hugged me in the parking lot, holding on longer than usual. Thanks for listening, Dad. For really listening. I always listen to you. They drove away. I stood beside my truck until their car disappeared, then drove directly to Marcus Bailey's office. Bailey was a lean man in his 50s, with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. I'm listening. We're engaged officially. Wedding in August. The photographs of Gertrude with Marcus Trent stared up at me from the desk. That's wonderful, son. Congratulations. Relief flooded his words. You're my son. Your happiness matters to me. Over the following week, Gertrude's pressure intensified. Wesley carefully mentioned how other parents help their children, circling the topic of financial support. Then came the text. Dad, can we talk? I agreed. Trudy wants to be there. Is that okay? I replied, if that's what you want. The next morning, I drove to Dominic's Steakhouse and parked. I pulled the small recording device from my glove box. Arizona was a one-party consent state. The recording device was an essential tool. I arrived early, ordered water, and waited. When Wesley and Gertrude arrived, she immediately presented the financial demand. $100,000 for a down payment on a $450,000 house, with the wedding scheduled for August. I played the role of the cautious, but open father. This is a big decision. I need to think about the numbers, consult my financial advisor. Gertrude, relieved, interpreted my stall as progress. Wesley hugged me in the parking lot. Thanks for listening, Dad. For really listening. I always listen to you. I drove directly to Marcus Bailey's office, the attorney who had handled contract disputes for my shops. He listened to the recording. She's fishing for a commitment without legal obligation. He emphasized the need to continue documenting everything. Documentation becomes your defense against accusations of interference. My phone rang. Rita Chun. I found something about Marcus Trent. You need to see this. Rita's latest report sat open on my desk. Photographs of Gertrude and Marcus Trent from years ago. Social media messages discussing finding the right opportunity. And financial records showing they'd worked together before Wesley ever entered the picture. 3 weeks after the lunch, Wesley called. His voice carried an angry edge. 3 weeks, Dad. You haven't given us an answer. Trudy thinks you're sabotaging us. I connected a video call. I have proof. Evidence that she's not who she claims. I grabbed the investigation folder and spread the contents in front of the camera. She has $47,000 in debt. She's meeting with a man named Marcus Trent. Who? The screen went black. He'd ended the call. For days of tense silence. Then the call I'd been dreading. Dad, we need to talk. Trudy's pregnant. We're having a baby. The implicit threat was clear. Accept Gertrude or lose access to your grandchild. I made my decision. Strategic retreat. 2 days later, I called Wesley. I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. I've been too cautious, too controlling. A grandchild changes everything. After the wedding, we'll sit down and work out how I can help. Dad, thank you. This means everything. I ended the call and immediately contacted Rita. I need you to verify something. The pregnancy. Can you check if it's real? If she's actually pregnant, there should be a trail. While Rita worked, I got the call I'd been dreading. I found her pattern. 2 previous engagements. Tucson 2019, dentist. Flagstaff 2022, contractor. Both broke it off suddenly. She's done this before. Wesley isn't her first target. He's just her current one. That evening, I created a new folder labeled Evidence, Complete Pattern, containing all of Rita's findings. My phone buzzed. Wesley, Trudy and I picked August 15th for the wedding. Hope you'll be there, Dad. I stared at the date. Less than 3 months away. I typed back. I'll be there. 2 days later, I met Rita. She slid a thick folder across the table. This is complete. Financial records, surveillance photos, Marcus Trent's involvement, the previous engagements, communication records, everything. I opened the folder, flipping through the meticulous work, bank statements, photographs, the social media archives showing the same pattern repeating. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Wesley. We're finalizing details. This is really happening. I looked up at Rita. I'll be there, I said quietly. And so will all of this. Rita stopped me. Once you do this, there's no going back. Wesley might not forgive you. If I don't do this, I'll lose him permanently, just to someone else. I picked up the folder. The weight of evidence, the burden of truth. I took the evidence to Marcus Bailey's office. He listened to the recordings and read the documents for an hour. Legally, you're clear. All of this is admissible if needed. I plan to present this at the wedding during toasts. Bailey removed his glasses. That's nuclear. You understand the consequences. Wesley won't listen any other way. He needs to see it publicly with witnesses so she can't spin it later. He'll be humiliated. He'll be humiliated for a day. If I don't do this, he'll be exploited for years. Bailey agreed to document our consultation. Providing proof, I acted on legal advice. Over the following weeks, I prepared my presentation, scanned documents, created slides, wrote a narrative. Rita called in mid-July. The pregnancy is definitely fake. No appointments, no prenatal care, nothing. I had the last piece of evidence. I picked up Gertrude's complete credit report, $54,000 in total debt, including personal loans and medical collections. I photographed every page. Late July, Wesley called. Dad, I need to talk about the wedding. Problems. Costs went higher than expected, about $12,000 over budget. I'll cover it. You're my son. This is your wedding. Send me the details and I'll write a check. I wrote the check that evening, investment in justice. Throughout June and July, I maintained careful emotional distance, warm enough not to raise suspicion, detached enough to protect myself. During one dinner, Wesley said, I know things were tense for a while. I'm glad we got past it. Wait until you meet your grandkid. Everything will make sense then. I looked at my son. I'm sure it will. The night before the wedding, I sat in my home office. Presentation loaded on the laptop, USB backup in my jacket pocket, printed documents in my briefcase. My phone showed a message from Wesley. Tomorrow's the big day. Glad you'll be there, Dad. I typed back. Wouldn't miss it for anything. I walked to my bedroom, laid out my suit, and looked at a photograph of Wesley as a young boy. I'm sorry it has to be this way. I whispered to the image. But I'm your father. Protecting you is what I do. I stood in the hotel parking lot, looking up at the venue entrance. Morning sun blazed bright in the Arizona sky. Music drifted from the ceremony area. I touched my jacket pocket. The USB drive was present. My briefcase felt heavier than physics allowed. My phone buzzed. Bailey, I'm here. The stage is set. Marcus Bailey, the attorney, is present and knows the plan. The evidence is secured. I took a breath, straightened my tie, and walked toward the entrance. The ceremony was beautiful. Wesley stood at the altar, his face glowing with happiness. Gertrude walked down the aisle, a picture-perfect bride. I sat in the third row, face neutral. The ceremony concluded, and the officiant announced, "We'll complete the legal paperwork Monday at the courthouse." The marriage wasn't legally binding yet, just a ceremony. During cocktails, Gertrude approached me, still smiling. She leaned close, whispered so only I could hear. "Old man, you'll buy us a house within a month of today. Otherwise, I walk away, and you'll only see your son through a courtroom when I sue for child support." I took a slow sip of my water. "You're welcome." She walked away, satisfied. She had just confirmed everything. Dinner was served. Toast time approached. The best man and maid of honor finished their speeches. And now the father of the groom, Forrest Dixon. I stood, buttoned my suit jacket, and took the microphone. Wesley looked at me with pride. Wesley has been the greatest joy of my life, watching him grow. There's no greater privilege than being his father. The room responded warmly, which is why what I'm about to do is the hardest thing I've ever done. The warmth shifted to a confused murmur. I paused, gave way to what came next. Then I pressed the remote in my pocket. The screen behind me lit up. But as a father, I cannot allow this marriage to begin with a lie. Silence crashed over the room. Gertrude Whitmore is not who she claims to be. She's not marrying my son for love. She's executing a plan. Gertrude stood, face transforming from shock to fury. What are you talking about? This is crazy. I clicked the remote. Slide 1. Credit card statements, $54,000 in debt across 6 accounts. Slide 2. Photographs of Gertrude with Marcus Trent, their body language unmistakably conspiratorial. Regular meetings with Marcus Trent, planning sessions for what she calls advantageous relationships. Audio waveform appeared. I pressed play. Gertrude's voice filled the room. Old man, you'll buy us a house within a month of today. Otherwise, I walk away and you'll only see your son through a courtroom when I sue for child support. The recording was from 20 minutes ago. Gasps ripped through the crowd. Next slide, medical documentation. And the pregnancy she announced to secure my cooperation. It doesn't exist. No medical appointments, no prenatal care, no pregnancy. Gertrude's voice rose shrill. You had no right. This is invasion of privacy. I continued calmly. Everything here was obtained legally. Private investigator, licensed and bonded. Arizona is a one-party consent state for recordings. Final slides. Records of 2 previous broken engagements to wealthy men. The same pattern repeating. Wesley finally found his voice, standing slowly. Dad, what is this? This is me protecting you. This is me being your father. Gertrude turned to Wesley. Don't listen to him. He's trying to destroy us. But Wesley was staring at the screen, his face pale. The reception hall descended into chaos. I set down the microphone, reached for my briefcase. Gertrude was shouting into her phone, dialing frantically. I'm calling the police. This is harassment. I remained standing at the head table. Through the windows, red and blue lights flashed. Wesley looked up at me. His face showed betrayal, confusion, hurt, but underneath was dawning comprehension. He looked from me to Gertrude, shouting into the phone, then back to me, standing quiet and steady. Wesley opened his mouth to speak. The first 2 police officers walked through the door. The female officer approached Gertrude, who immediately pointed at me, accusing me of illegal stalking and harassment. The younger officer approached me. Sir, what's your name? Forrest Dixon. This is my attorney, Marcus Bailey. I presented evidence of fraud at my son's wedding. The bride has been deceiving my family to obtain money. Bailey stepped forward. Everything was obtained legally. We have full documentation. 20 minutes later, Detective Sarah Morrison, experienced and sharp-eyed, arrived. She approached me, carrying a tablet. I'm Detective Sarah Morrison. Who called this in? Gertrude's voice cut across the room. I did. He's been stalking me, spying on me. This is harassment. Morrison's gaze swept the scene calmly. Ma'am, I'll take your statement. Sir. She looked at me. You're the father of the groom? Yes, and I have evidence of attempted fraud. Let's start from the beginning. Everyone involved, conference room now. In the private conference room, I presented the organized evidence. I confirmed I hired Rita Chun, provided her license number, and verified that all evidence was legally obtained in public spaces or through one-party consent recordings. Morrison reviewed the documents methodically for 40 minutes, then excused herself, taking specific documents to Gertrude's room. Through the slightly open door, I heard the shift in questioning. Ms. Whitmore, did you tell Wesley Dixon and his father that you were pregnant? That's private medical information. The medical records here show no pregnancy, confirmation that no records exist under your name at any major Phoenix hospital or clinic. A pause. I might have been mistaken about the pregnancy. Morrison returned to our room. Mr. Dixon, you're free to go. I'll be opening an investigation into Miss Whitmore's actions, specifically the false pregnancy claim used to solicit money. That could constitute fraud. I'll need formal statements from you and your son in the coming days. I walked into the empty reception hall. Wesley sat alone at the head table, still in his tuxedo. Gertrude was near the entrance, her voice low and defeated. I stopped a respectful distance from my son. Wesley finally spoke, his voice raw. I need time to think, to understand all of this. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. He stood, setting his boutonniere on the table, a small gesture of rejection. He walked toward the exit, pausing without turning around. Thank you for, I don't know, for something. Then he was gone. 2 days later, Marcus Bailey called. Gertrude tried to find an attorney to sue you for defamation and emotional distress. Every single one declined after reviewing your evidence. One told her she should be worried about criminal charges, not filing civil suits. Rats leaving a sinking ship, I said. By August 20th, Gertrude's financial house of cards collapsed. Credit card companies filed collection suits, and her landlord began eviction. Her reputation was ash. The wedding footage had gone viral. August 27th, while I was under a car at the shop, Detective Morrison called. We found a previous victim. The dentist from Tucson, 2019. Same pattern. Fake pregnancy. Financial demands. He paid her $15,000 to go away quietly. He's providing a formal statement. Fraud charges are looking very likely now. That evening, my doorbell rang. Wesley stood on my doorstep, holding a six-pack of beer and wearing old work clothes. His face looked drawn, exhausted. Can I come in? Always. I don't want to talk about it yet. Can I help at the shop like I used to? I've got a transmission that needs work. Could use another pair of hands. Thanks, Dad. His nod was small, grateful. For the next 2 days, we worked together, changing oil, diagnosing problems, falling into old rhythms. We didn't force conversation. During a break on the second day, sitting on upturned buckets, Wesley spoke, handing me a tool. I saw all the signs. I just didn't want to believe them. Sometimes we see what we want to see. You saw the truth. I had distance. You had feelings. Those are different lenses. More silence. Wesley emerged from under the hood, with grease on his forearms. I'm embarrassed. Everyone saw me being played. Everyone saw you being a good man who trusted someone. That's not shameful. It feels shameful. I set down my wrench, looked at him directly. In 1995, I partnered with a guy who stole $40,000 from the business. I trusted him completely. Felt like an idiot for months. Wesley looked up, surprised. You never told me that. Because I learned something. Trust isn't stupidity. Betraying trust is the crime, not offering it. He absorbed that, nodded slowly, and returned to work. By the end of the second day, something had shifted. As we locked up the shop, Wesley turned to me. Dad, can we talk? Really talk? My place. I'll make dinner. We drove separately to my house. Inside, as I prepared food, Wesley sat at the kitchen table. I set 2 plates down, sat across from him. My phone buzzed. A text from Morrison. Formal charges being filed tomorrow. Thought you'd want to know. I showed Wesley the message. He read it, nodded slowly. Good, he said quietly. But that's not what I want to talk about, he said. I need to say. I set my fork down, giving him my full attention. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was being stubborn. You're my son. Giving up was never an option. I ignored so many signs. I wanted to believe her so badly that I didn't let myself see the truth. That's human. It's not a failure. How did you stay so calm when I was calling you paranoid, dismissing everything you said? I wasn't always calm, but I knew if I reacted emotionally, you'd dig in deeper. So I focused on getting evidence you couldn't dismiss. We talked for 2 hours. Wesley expressed his gratitude, humiliation, and recognition. His posture gradually relaxed. The tension eased from his shoulders. The next morning, Bailey called. Formal charges filed this morning. Attempted fraud, Class 4 felony. Over the following days, Wesley methodically removed Gertrude from his life, changed locks, blocked her number, and sold the engagement ring. August 29th, Bailey presented a cost analysis. $15,400 in total investigation expenses. You have every right to file for restitution. I ran my finger down the itemized list. She doesn't have it. She'll never have it. I pushed the paper across the desk to Bailey. I am whole. My son is safe. That's what mattered. August 30th, evening. Wesley came to my house. We sat on the back terrace, holding bottles of beer, comfortable in the silence. I owe you an apology for not trusting you, for everything I said. You don't owe me anything. You were in love. Love makes people vulnerable. Still, you were right, and I should have listened. Being a father means protecting your children, even when they don't want protection. Wesley laughed quietly. Next time, I'll listen to your concerns earlier. Next time, bring me someone who loves you for you, not for what I have. Deal. Though it might be a while before I trust anyone again. Take your time. The right person will be worth the wait. We sat in silence until the sky was deep blue and the stars began to appear. As he prepared to leave, Wesley paused at the threshold. He offered his hand, then pulled me into a brief, tight hug. I watched him drive away, then returned to the terrace, looking up at the dark sky. The work was done. My son was safe. Justice was served. The peacefulness of resolution settled over me. No more battles to fight. Just a quiet August evening in Phoenix and a family that survived betrayal by standing together when it mattered most.